Hello everybody, GGC Anime here, and today we are going to be reviewing Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun Season 3, or Marimashita Iruma-kun 3rd Season. I probably said that wrong, but we're just going to roll with it. Okay, so what is the story behind Season 3 of Iruma-kun? Basically, everyone inside of the Misfit class has to get up to Dalit rank before the end of the first term, or not first term, first semester, but however, their first year, basically their first year, and right now, they're about to enter this thing called the Harvest Festival. But before that, they have to train up themselves, and after that, they go on and take on this Harvest Festival. And that is what a majority of the season focuses on, and that's about how well I'm going to describe it, because that's really just it. So, yeah. That was a pretty bad description, but we're just going to roll with it. So, I'm just going to be right off the bat here. This has probably so far been my favorite season of Iruma. Like, I am very surprised that the first storyline that has been super long, this is probably the longest an Iruma storyline has ever been, with the Harvest Festival being, I'm pretty sure, pretty long compared to a lot of the other storylines, and honestly, it was amazing. The beginning was a bit rough, but overall, I thought this was a great season. It's personally been my favorite season of Iruma. I had such a good time. It was so good, and we'll talk about that right here in the spoiler-free thoughts. So, just to get it out of the way, I love so much that happened in this. Not only does it have a more interesting vibe with how it actually starts to connect more with the different characters and their thoughts and fears and like achievements and ambitions, but it also gives us a lot more. It gives us so much more than that. It also gives us tons of different ideas of what each character thinks and feels, and it just does such a good job at making me really like the Misfit class. As I found myself, even with episodes that Iruma wasn't the main focus, they were still really good, because especially Iruma. I'm gonna say it right here, Iruma just did a fantastic job in this season. Iruma was probably one of the best characters in this, right up there with his partner for most of the season, Lead, who honestly, they definitely brought things together for me, and honestly, they just made this such an enjoyable season, and the rest of the cast did too. I can't really go into many big reasons as to why that's the case without going to spoilers, so we'll do that in the spoiler section, but to go over everything, I found this season to just have so much inside of it that I was interested in. Like, I remember usually whenever I watch a serious storyline in Iruma-kun, I'm either like, okay, this is kind of interesting, or I don't really care about this too much, which happened to me with both the first storyline in season 1, or not the first storyline, but the first like main villain storyline in season 1, as well as the Walter Park incident in season 2. Neither of those really interested me that much in the end. They weren't terrible, but weren't amazing. I love the Harvest Festival. It's not perfect. I definitely find the beginning to be a bit slow, but after it starts to pick up, I just loved it so much that to the point where once it was over, I was like, wait, we're already done? Like, it was so good. I really enjoyed the Harvest Festival. I didn't feel like it dragged on too long. In fact, I found myself kind of wishing for more, and overall, it was just such a good season. I had such an amazing time, and I honestly want to kind of rewatch it already because it was just such a blast. I had such a good time, and I do not regret sitting down and watching it because it was just so good. There were moments that I wasn't super into it, mainly just the like minor episodes where just some random stuff is happening, mainly near the end of the season, but there are still some good episodes there. But basically everything after the Harvest Festival is a lot more meh, but everything before that point, I for the most part really liked. Again, the Harvest Festival had a bit of a rough start for me, but once we started to get more into it and start developing further, I started to get more into it, and it was a really good season. And honestly, I am so happy I came back to Iruma for the 3rd season, and it was so good, and it already makes me really hyped for season 4, which I'm sure they're gonna make one since they've been doing that for a while, and I'm 100% down for a season 4. If they don't, it'd be a bit sad because I'm really excited for what awaits further on, and yeah. That's all I can really say without spoiling anything, so we're gonna hop into the spoiler section now. Here's a timestamp to when the spoilers end. If you have seen Iruma-kun Season 3, I'd recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, you should skip to the end so you don't get any spoilers. But again, if you have stuck around, then I'd recommend, or if you have like seen it, then I'd recommend you sticking around to hear my thoughts. So yeah, I'm just gonna catch up for 5, and we're gonna enter the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, going into some spoilers about why this season's so good. It honestly just always kept me on the edge of my seat with everything that was going on. Like, I was really worried about near the end when Iruma looked like he was actually going to lose. Even though I knew he'd probably pull off some random twist of a joke near the end, they still kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was honestly just such an investing story. It was so good, especially when it came to some of the stuff that came with Iruma, where he ends up having to kind of like confront his past, where a person uses illusion magic to make Iruma see his parents, and it made him wonder about how he fit into this world, and he started to have like a despaired existential crisis type thing where he was just like, I'm just terrified of what would happen if all the people I cared about just abandoning me and leaving me to go back to my parents in life I hated before this. And it was so interesting since it gave a more focused feeling of Iruma, making you realize he's not just like this fun little boy who used to suffer cruelly and now he's living a happy life. Instead, it's showing you, yeah, that past still traumatizes him. It's not just oh, he was sad, but now he's happy now. He's clearly still traumatized by the fact of how he was treated before he went to the netherworld. And it's just such an interesting thing, since it helps develop Iruma even more, since then we get to see him use his newly made bow, which honestly, I really liked the pre-story, like the game, the Harvest Festival, when he trained with his teacher Bachiko, who honestly became one of the most interesting characters in this season, minus Lead and Iruma, who really stole all the spotlight for me personally. And honestly, seeing Iruma use that bow to shoot away his fears and anxieties about how he is in the world is really interesting, and honestly, it makes me really excited to see where he's gonna go. And then, quickly skipping ahead a little bit before going into the rest, I will say something now. I'm a bit disappointed by the fact of the villains learning about Iruma as a human. Not because it's a bad twist, because I was spoiled for it before I even got to watch this season. I was just scrolling through YouTube one day and then I was recommended, villains find out Iruma's human. Jeez, that would have been a really interesting plot point to learn if it wasn't spoiled for me. That would have been such a good twist had it not been spoiled. Does anyone else hate spoilers? I really hate spoilers, but I definitely feel like that moment would have had a lot more impact. I'm still excited to see where it goes, but for now I'm just like, I don't know. Although I am very curious about what's going to happen next. The music festival, I believe, is the next thing coming up, and from the looks of it, there could be a potential return, from what I've heard, of Iruma and his evil cycle, maybe as like a idol or something, which I hope that's an actual true thing, because I would love to see how that would turn out. And yeah, that part, definitely, the villains learning Iruma was a human thing, could have led to a more interesting idea behind it, but in the end, it could have left so much more of an impact if I hadn't already been spoiled on it, which makes me get really mad at people on YouTube who think they could just upload these YouTube clips and be like, haha, spoiler. But yeah, little rant over. So going back on things, there are a few moments in this that actually really made me feel frustrated. Not in the sense of like, I hate the anime frustrated, more of a, I can't believe they decided to do this frustrated. And one of those moments was with Clara, where I mentioned before that a person created illusions to make Iruma see his parents and deal with the idea of going back to the human world and suffering through that again. And they did a similar thing with Clara, where they used an illusion to make it look like Iruma was trying to get stuff from her, asking for a drink and stuff, and it was clearly traumatizing her. And then when he kept saying, the fake Iruma kept saying about how she was just useful and that was it, they didn't think of her as friends, all I could think was, stop this! Stop this! Like, Clara is just one of those characters that, as much as I'm kind of like mixed on her, where I don't love her or hate her, that moment made me mad. Like, that made me realize, wow, Iruma is really kind to Clara, and Clara she just does not deserve this. Like, she does not deserve to be dealing with this trauma. I was actually really upset with that, but at the same time, it works into the story, and it was honestly such a good plot point because it makes you realize she still has like this trauma deep down about how people used to see her as nothing more than a convenience, but now she has friends who she can rely on, but she still has that fear that they're still just using her, which is really interesting. And yeah, there is one thing that's, moving past all that for now, there's one thing that I myself am a bit unsure how to feel about, and it's not even related to the show itself, but the dub voice actor for Asmodeus, because it may sound dumb, but I watch Iruma dubbed. I do think the sub is better in terms of voice acting, but I started it dubbed. It'd be really weird for me to go back into it subbed. I've tried before, it just didn't work, it didn't feel right. So I continued to watch it dubbed, and it's super awkward with this season since the original voice actor who played Asmodeus passed away. So they sent in a new voice actor who sounds very similar to play him, and I don't know, it felt a little bit off, but at the same time, I did kind of get into it. But yeah, that was a bit of a mixed feelings for me, because I do think the new person did a good job. However, it definitely feels like it's definitely a bit strange. You know, it always feels strange when you hear one voice, then you hear another and its replacement. It's like they sound similar, but there's just something off that you can't put your finger on. But yeah, I just want to talk about that quickly. I think it's a very interesting situation, because I do think the new voice actor did a decently good job, and I don't mind it. It's just a bit hard to adjust to, but I'm sure I'll just do it fair enough, fairly quickly. In fact, I did. I actually adjusted to it quite well this season. I'm sure I'll get used to it by next season. So yeah. So moving past that for now, next topic on hand has got to be the Harvest Festival itself, which helps focus a lot more on all the characters, since at the beginning of the season, they all went through like a little training arc, with Bachiko teaching Iruma and a bunch of other teachers teaching all the other students, including Balam, who taught Asmodeus, as well as Sobnak, and yeah. Basically, after all of that training, we get to see them in the Harvest Festival, and honestly, I mentioned at the beginning, I felt like things were a bit kind of awkward because they were still adjusting us to the Harvest Festival, things were still working their way through. But then, as the story went on, I got more and more into it, as we slowly got to see more and more developments for all the characters, and honestly, they were a blast. From seeing some of the characters, such as Argus and Garp, as well as Crocal, who all had these moments that just really made them shine. I really enjoyed them, and definitely made their characters a lot more interesting. Just everything about their whole developments in the Harvest Festival, as well as a lot of the other characters, definitely added a lot to it, and I'm so glad to see them getting developments as well. And I found their little war and scuffle between each other was actually a lot of fun, as well as Lead and Iruma's little hunt for a mysterious item that gives 100,000 points, which is honestly probably my favorite part of the whole thing, where they team up with this new character called Nafala, who just kind of, sticks to their side, and it's later revealed to be a new member of the student council. And yeah, they eventually find this legendary leaf thing, and after that, Iruma wins the competition with Lead, and overall, the Harvest Festival was definitely the highlight of this, especially since we got to see a lot more about Lead and who his character is. Not like everything, but we got to see a lot more about who he was, how much he loves his games, and how he used to be a loner person, didn't think he'd have any friends, but then he and the Misfit class end up getting along really well, and it's so entertaining to see these characters interact with one another. And Lead definitely picked it up a notch, especially during the Harvest Festival, where he helped Iruma a lot and during all the bad situations they ended up in, and it was so good. Lead and Iruma were definitely the highlights of this whole season. I really enjoyed them, and overall, I definitely find this season to be the best of the different seasons of Iruma, since this one has not only a consistent storyline throughout the whole season, but it's an entertaining storyline. Like, once we got past this first few episodes again, which weren't the best, but weren't the worst, every episode after that was pretty much a banger. Like, it was every single time I was invested. I wanted to see what happened next. I had such a good time, and this is probably my favorite season of Iruma of the three. Who knows if season 4 will top it? We'll see, but yeah. That's all we have to say, so we're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? Honestly, really loved Iruma Season 3. I had a very good time with it, and it makes me very excited to check out Season 4 if it comes out. If Season 4 does come out, count me in. I'm down, and yeah, that's why I have to give Season 3 of Iruma-kun a 9 out of 10. There were a few episodes here and there that I wasn't as invested in, but overall, had an amazing time with this season. Probably my favorite so far, and I'm looking forward to what adventures Iruma goes through next. So yeah, that's all I really have to say, so thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I also can do anime fans to the channel, and I will see you all around. Peace!